Hey everyone, welcome to another of OfferVault's famous webinars. And tonight, one of our illustrious alumni and very often requested presenters, Liane Carmi, is on board. And tonight she's going to explain the intricacies, the wonderful side of succeeding with process maps. And at that point, Liane, I'm going to shut up because I don't know what you're talking about, so I'm going to pay attention for a change. It's all yours.
All right. Well, thanks, Rick. And it's really nice to have everyone here today. And as Rick said, today's all about organizing and turbocharging your web promotion with process maps. And my goal for you, this webinar, is that by the end of the webinar, you'll have the knowledge that you need in order to create a basic process map. And that process map is going to help you to work faster, work smarter. It's going to help you to outsource, and it's going to help you to out-task. Okay, so now just a couple of things. If you haven't been on one of my webinars before, you need to know this. I've got the question box open on my screen. You can't see it, but I can see it. And anytime you want clarification on something, anytime something's not clear, anytime you just want to ask a question, please feel free to go ahead and do that. And if it makes sense for me at the time, I'll answer it right away. If not, I'll answer it at the end of the webinar. So I'm always looking at the question box and always very happy to answer your questions and then get you going on the right path. So before we get started with process maps, I need to get something really clear about my expertise, or rather lack thereof, with process maps. I'm not an expert on process maps by any means. Actually, when I create process maps, I do it wrong. But when Mark asked me to come here and present for you guys this week, I did some thinking, and I thought, what would really help people? What's something that really helped me when I first got started? When I was my first year of marketing, and the first thing that popped to my mind was process maps, and it's something that helped me do things right, help me get clarity on what I was doing. And it was the start of my outsourcing process. And I know a lot of you might just be trying to figure out how to get things going right. Maybe you're promoting a website and you're trying to figure out how to do it better. Well, this is going to help you. Some of you are at the point where you've been promoting things and you're like, okay, well, when do I get to step away and do something new and learn something new? And that's when you go to out-task and outsource, and that's what I'm going to show you today as well. Okay, so again, let me be very clear about my lack of expertise with process maps. I'm going to show you a lot of examples from different websites, and actually what I did to prepare for the webinar today is something much like the process of curation. Basically, I went out there and I did the research to bring everything to you, to show you things from other websites. But I will show you some personal examples so that you can see how I personally use process maps, and I really hope that it helps you to do the same. So let's talk about what process maps are first of all, because some of you might have come here to the webinar and you might be thinking to yourself, well, okay, well, I'm here, but what the heck is Liane talking about, right? What the heck is a process map? So a process map is like a flow chart that shows everything that needs to happen, what needs to go from here to here, what people need to talk in order to complete a process and get a desired result. So you can have a process map for everything. And a little later, I'll talk about, a peanut butter sandwich. If you wanted to make a peanut butter sandwich, you could create a process map for that, right? The desired result, of course, would be that you have a peanut butter and jelly sandwich on a plate and you can pick it up and eat it. Well, to me, in English, a process map is a simple graphical way to show what needs to happen, in what order, who should do what, and what the outcome should be. Okay, so, the peanut butter needs to be spread on the bread, it needs to be placed on a plate, and someone should be able to pick it up and eat it, right? In more detail than that. And some things that process maps do is they show a structured set of activities. They define responsibilities if you have multiple people. They define standards, as in what needs to happen here, when is this okay and when is it not okay? They create consistency, and I've got that in bold because that's a really big thing. Creating consistency is something that's going to help you do things faster, and it's going to help, when you outsource, it's going to help you get good results every time. It's also going to help you better communicate ideas. Again, that's good for outsourcing. And it's going to help you solve problems. Just the process of creating a process map can help you solve problems. So I hope to show you that today. Now, when are they helpful? right? When should you use one? Well, you've got a company, right? Either you've got employees or you're your company. You're the only person working there. No matter what it is, you've got some major processes that you follow. Okay. Maybe it's the process of creating a website. Maybe it's the process of promoting something. Okay. No matter what it is, there are some processes that you follow. And you can use process maps to standardize those, to make them really simple to follow, where, you know, if every week you go and create a new website, it might take you an hour, maybe an hour and a half. And then you think about, well, you know, maybe you're building a WordPress site and you think about, well, I'm going to put in this plugin and, let me put in some Google Analytics and let me add this comments plugin. Let me do this. And all the thinking really takes time. Where if you have a process map, you can really follow it to say, okay, I'm creating a site. Step one, I'm going to go to the cPanel and install WordPress. Okay, step two, I'm going to install this theme. Step three, I'm going to make this change in the CSS to the theme, or I'm going to make this change in the theme because I want to change the color, and I'm going to upload a header. Step four, I'm going to place these exact plugins in there, my Google Analytics plugin, my SEO Platinum plugin, and my comments plugin. And step four, I'm going to put one article on the site to start it off, and that's it. That's the process, right? So if you have a process laid out like that in a process map, a nice graphical way, and I'll show you some examples so you can see it a little bit more clearly. When you have that set out, then it's as simple as just following it, just going, okay, step one, step two, step three. There's no thinking involved, or very little thinking. And you can build that hour-and-a-half website in 20 minutes or less. Okay, so that's really the purpose of process maps. So you can show that major process. You can show a specific process, like here's how to install a plugin. And you would do that if you were getting ready to outsource, right? You'd have that, how do I install this plugin? And you could even have that for yourself. Maybe installing the analytics plugin, you don't want to have to think about what I do next. Have your analytics code ready to go on the process map and copy and paste it into the plugin, right? So making things faster, more streamlined. If you're working with a lot of other people or you're thinking about it, and I'll show you my example of this later, you can show how different people interact. Okay, so who does what, who gives what to who. Okay, there's something that one person completes and gives that final product to the next person who can manipulate it in some other way. Okay, sounds complicated, but it's really simple, and I'll show you. You can show the flow of a specific document. Maybe you've got a call center and they're filling out information on a person and they've got to pass that information to someone else, to the supervisor who can fill out something else, right? That's the flow of a document. You can show essential tasks, pretty much the same thing as showing a process. And you can create a workflow for one or more people. And basically you visually illustrate the essential details of any process, okay? So most of all, to me anyway, process maps help you get clear on what needs to happen and what needs to improve. As you put together a process map, you really get into thinking and adjusting. And I don't know how many of you are familiar with the process of writing. Those of you who don't know, I come from a teaching background, and I used to teach English as a second language, and I taught English. And part of that is teaching writing. And actually, any of you, even if you've just taken any class in college, for example, you've done this. You've had to write a report, and as you start writing, things get organized in your head, and then you go back and say, wait, I need to change that. And all of a sudden, you've got your thesis statement, and you've got everything else coming together, and everything becomes organized as you start to write. And creating a process map is very similar. It helps you get organized on what needs to happen in your business, in your process, and what you can improve. Okay, so that's I think that one of the biggest reasons that you'd want to create one. All right, so let's look at some examples of process maps. Okay, and again, these are some references that I have for you, and I'll show you a personal example as well. But let's look at some examples and some details of process maps. All right, so this is not very clear. It says order to cash cycle. This is a high-level process map. This is just an example of what a company might put together to show, things going from one one department to another, and what happens. And you see it's full of different types of arrows. I believe this dotted arrow is, information being sent, and the straight arrow is going from one to the other. And just looking at it, overview, not knowing what the company is, it's kind of confusing, especially since you guys are probably having a hard time reading these. They just say supplier, raw materials with a red arrow, receiving inspection, raw materials to production, finished goods to distribution, finished goods to customer. Okay, that's the basic thing. And then it's got other things going up and down, like a payable cycle, inventory cycle, purchasing cycle, production scheduling, sales cycle, and so on. And I actually can't read this myself. So this is just an example of a high-level process. It doesn't really tell you how to do things. It just shows where things come in and where they end up. Okay, that's all it shows. So let's close that example. And here's an example of a workflow. Okay, so this is for, one or two people, and they've got, credit report coming in, credit check, doing a credit check, approved terms granted, credit issued analysis. It's just got different steps that a person would do. It's even got an arrow from the credit criteria back to a credit check. And again, if this is not your business, this may not make 100% sense to you at this point. And it's also not defining a specific process, right? It's just showing someone's workflow. Here's what they do. But they would need another, process of, what do they do here? So you could create another process map or detailed steps, right? So this is just very basic. Again, it's like an overview of what someone would do. Here's another one. This is, again, from the same website, a low-level process map. And again, it shows all the different things that you might do. It's got the same stuff, the credit criteria. It's got, a sales call coming in, someone buys a product. If they buy it, this is when you have a square like this, it's supposed to be a decision, a yes/no decision. So if someone buys the product, then you go to a credit form, and then an order entry and an order form, and then you do a credit check, and there's credit criteria that go in there. And if it's bad credit, they go back, or they get or if they have a high balance or something. If it's okay, then they review it. Then they calculate the terms, they issue the report, they approve the terms. Okay, so very simple flow. It goes from one to the other. Something goes wrong, it goes back. And this is, a nice low-level process of flow. This is what someone has to do. Again, it's not given all the details. It's not step one, here's how you fill out the order entry. But that would be something separate that you would write on the side, or that you simply know. Okay, but it is a good idea to have all of that. All right, here's an example of what's called a cross-functional swim lanes map, and I have a version of this of my own, which I'll show you. Again, I apologize for these not being very clear. They're actually very small files on the website, and I'll show you where to find that as well. And this is for credit approval, so there's the customer swim lane, the sales swim lane, the management swim lane, and the credit department. So now you see that all these different things that we looked at before actually being separated into different categories. Okay, the customer is the one that has to buy the product and fill out the credit form. The sales team is the one that picks up the sales call, that takes the order entry, that fills out the order form. The management looks at the credit criteria. The credit department does the credit check, does the whatever this says, and calculates the terms and either approves them or doesn't. And then the management issues a credit report. Okay, so again, it doesn't matter what these are because this is not your company. This is just an example of these swim lanes, which I love, which I'm going to, again, show you an example of my own. So I believe we've got to all the examples. These, we'll come back to this in a second. I want to show you a personal example of mine. And this is, I'm using a program called OmniGraffle. And OmniGraffle is a program that's only available on the Mac. They have other programs like this on the PC. They have lots of programs like this, both on the Mac and PC. I've just been using OmniGraffle for many, many years since my teaching days. And it's one of my favorites. I don't know if you guys can see this. I'll move this over on the screen just so you can see. There are a lot of different shapes that you can pull over. I'll use this for mock-ups, for web pages, and takes a while to load because we're on the webinar. But for example, they have banners, and they have all kinds of things that you can put together. But anyway, that's not important right now. What I wanted to show you is this sample process map that I put together a few years back. And this is, I did this when I first thought about outsourcing. And, I had my ideas together about, doing my SEO promotions. And, I thought about creating the website and creating the content and then promoting. And so I used the swim lanes, and I split this into 2 sections for myself. And you'll notice in a minute when I show you these other documents that this is really not not correct, everything I used, but it worked for me. Okay, and my point is that you don't need to follow the idea of process maps to a T. You just need to have something that works for you. So I've got some swim lanes here. I've got me. I put you. I've got a project manager, a webmaster, an article writer, and a promoter. Okay, I didn't actually end up hiring all these people, but I'll show you who I did hire. So here's my flow. I've got selecting a niche. I left that to myself. And creating a keyword blueprint, I decided to let my project manager do that. Okay, so keyword blueprint, you look at that and you say, what is that? Well, I had a list of what it meant to create a keyword blueprint separately. I had a, step-by-step, step 1, type in the name of the niche. Step 2, go through the keyword research basically and fill out my keyword blueprint. Now, what I have here is the project manager would send me the keyword blueprint. I'd review it and approve it. Okay. Now, I didn't put an arrow to the next step, but it would basically have to go back to the project manager to say, okay, it's approved. Next, I have the project manager going to the webmaster and having the webmaster create an SEO'd site, adding analytics and graphics. Okay. And then I have the whole process going to the article writer to write content for the site. And then I have the project manager approving that. In the meantime, I've got, for myself, creating a squeeze page and writing the autoresponders, and then sending it to the project manager for approval. Once the project manager receives everything, he places the content on the site, or has the webmaster place the content on the site, and the project manager approves. So now the site is created. Okay, so this was my overview of the process to create everything, right? Again, all of these have different step-by-step processes. Here's how to create an SEO site. Here's how to add the Google Analytics plugin. Here's how to add the graphics. Here's where you get the graphics. This might be something that's out-tasked. Once that's done, I've got a new process. Basically, it starts with my approval of the promotion blueprint. So I've got this going by height. This is like step 1. Next, it goes to this, to this, to this, and also by arrows. So the next step is the project manager puts together a promotion blueprint, again, following step-by-step process that I created. I approve it, and it goes to the writer for promotional content. It goes to the promoter, okay, my SEO person, for promotion, and this person would also track progress. They would feed all that stuff to the webmaster, who tracks the traffic, the rankings, the conversions. The project manager gets it as well, recommends adjustments, okay, gets the report, recommends adjustments, and the webmaster will make adjustments as necessary, and the project manager reports on the progress to me, and then I just keep promoting and testing, which basically means keep doing this. Okay, so is it a perfect process map? No, not by any means, right? But it's something that helped me get started, and here's what I ended up doing. I ended up doing the work of me. I ended up doing the work of the project manager. I ended up doing the work of the webmaster, but I had a writer and I had a promoter. And although there's only one square here, this is actually the bulk of the work. Okay, so I've still got this outsourcer that's still promoting for me and tracking progress for me. And it's so helpful. It's, things that it's an 8-hour day for her, and it frees up my time to do other things. And article writer, I don't have an article writer anymore, but I out-task it. I order from different sites. And if you've seen my other webinars here, you've seen some of the places where I'll get content. So basically, this stuff is out-tasked. This stuff is outsourced. The difference is out-task, I get it when I need it. Outsourcer, it's a full-time job. And that frees up my time to do some of this other stuff. Okay, and once in a while, I also out-task some of the webmaster stuff these days. But basically, the rest of it is one-time things. They're not very time-consuming. They're not repetitive, and so I don't mind doing them. And to this day, I still use something very similar to this process map. So I just wanted to show you that. I'm going to show you how to put together your own process map, but this is an example of one that I put together and made pretty, and let's look at why it's wrong, okay? just so I give you some good information. And while I'm doing that, can I just get some quick feedback? You guys have a question box. Give me some quick feedback. Say, yes, I'm following. No, it doesn't make any sense. Let me know if there's something else that you want to ask me. Just give me some quick feedback, like, is this good so far for you? Because my whole goal here is for this to be useful to you, for you to be able to do this. So let's just get some quick, yes, this is good, or can you clarify, whatever it is. And yes, absolutely, there's going to be a replay. This software that I'm using right here is called OmniGraffle. You can see it right here on the top left of my screen. It says OmniGraffle Pro. You can do this with OmniGraffle. You don't need the Pro version. Again, this is a Mac software, but software like this is available on the PC as well. There are a lot of different ones. You can look up flowchart software, and you'll be able to find some things. So I've got, okay, if I'm following, good to lay out workflows and evaluation of the process can be measured. Absolutely, Rick. So, yeah, I mean, once you look at this,
if I can throw something out to you for the moment, there's something I know that I've seen other people use on PCs called Mind Tools. Yeah, MINDTOOLS. And it's pretty useful as well on PCs. I think it's PC.
Okay, interesting. That might not be it. But if you just maybe look up also flowchart software, you should be able to find some things. So I don't even know some of these, but I'm sure they're good. And Breeze Tree is actually one specifically for process maps and flowcharts. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of options. The idea is just get something that you can use. So it's not really a big deal of like, which software you use. It's just a matter of, can you use it? I guess that's the really big idea there. So yeah, and what I was just saying is, Rick made a comment of, you can do an evaluation of the process. You can measure what you're doing, and that's exactly it. Because putting this together, it didn't take me 5 minutes. It took me a few hours and over several days of improving it and making changes and showing it to someone to look at and say, does this make sense? And getting feedback. And it's really, like I said, it's really like the writing process. You start off, you reorganize, you think about things, and eventually you get it clear. And it's never going to be perfect, but as long as you can use it, you can always see where something's wrong. And, as you're working through this, let's just imagine that I had all these people, right, and me right here. I could suddenly say, you know what, my article writer is, spending half the day doing nothing. I'm going to pass this task on to her. And I can make changes like that using the process map. I can make it very simple in that way. And I can also make changes, if I figure out that the keyword blueprint, the project manager, takes them 5 hours to do it, I could already send the main keywords to the content writer before then. Okay, whatever it is that can be adjusted and moved around, it can be done with this, and you can see if it's viable. So yeah, Badra says, for outsourcers, do you write up each process for them? Yes, definitely. So everything here, I mean, for my project manager, the keyword blueprint, I would have an example of it. Here's an example of my keyword blueprint. I would have a step-by-step, and you could create another process flow for it, okay, another process map, and say, step 1, type in the main keyword phrase. Step 2, look at this. I'll record videos as examples. So I make it as clear as possible what the job has to be, and I definitely write it step by step with examples. So that's a great question, Badra. And yeah, Steven says, good for finding bottlenecks in the process flow. Absolutely. It's like, how come this isn't moving? What's going on? And then you look and you say, okay, well, what's going on? How come the content's not on the site yet? okay, it's taken a long time for the article writer. Maybe I need to hire another article writer. Maybe I need to fire my article writer and hire someone else, right? So absolutely. Great. Okay, so let's continue. And what I wanted to show you were a couple of examples of, well, actually this example of how it's supposed to be done. And this is an example from one of the websites that I have referenced on the text document. And it just shows how things are really supposed to look. And you'll see that my example is not exactly correct. You have an oval to show the input to start the process, or the output at the end of the process. Okay, so I don't have any of those ovals here. I have this thing to start and I have this thing to end. But, like my own personal preference, I thought it looked pretty. A box of rectangles used to show a task or activity performed in the process. So I think I got that right. Arrow shows direction or the flow of the process. Okay, so I sort of got that right. A diamond shows points in the process where a yes/no question is asked or a decision is required. So it's got, an arrow for yes or an arrow for what you do if no. And there's usually only one arrow out of an activity box. If there's more than one, you may need a decision diamond. So I've got only one coming out, but I've got them kind of funky going to different places. But if you have two arrows, then you probably need to go to a yes or no box, right? One of these, which I call approve. And it says make sure every feedback loop is closed. In other words, every path takes you either back to or ahead to another step. So you never want to leave things not going anywhere. Okay, and I don't have an arrow coming into this at all, and I probably should. But anyway, again, whatever works. So what I really want to get clear to you is that do what works for you. I don't care if you make stars, just put something together, right? And Stephen obviously has some experience with this. He says a black node for full stop, start, and an open node for finish. Okay, very interesting. So a lot of rules that I don't know, that you might know, that you might not know. My point is, it doesn't matter. So here's a cute make breakfast flow. Inputs: eggs, milk, bread, butter, bacon, plates, utensils, cookware, potatoes. Output: scrambled eggs, toast, crisp bacon, pan-fried potatoes. Make breakfast becomes prepare ingredients, cook ingredients, serve ingredients. Cook ingredients becomes cook bacon, cook eggs, toast bread, fry potatoes. Cook eggs becomes heat pan, pour mixture, stir mixture, they misspelled it, stir mixture, add pepper, remove eggs. Okay, so this is another way to create a process flow where you actually dig deep into different things. So, you could have a keyword blueprint, make a keyword blueprint, input, main keyword phrase, output, 5 different secondary keyword phrases or 20 keyword phrases. And then you could split that up. Okay, so one more way to create a process map or a process flow. All right, so let's go back to our text document now. And let's talk about the elements you should include in the process map. Okay, so we looked at that chart. There's inputs, there's outputs, activity steps, decision points, and functions. And that's really the basic stuff that you want in there. You want to know what's coming in, what's coming out, what you have to do, when you have to decide something, and any functions that need to happen. And John's asking if I have any flowchart for designing a website. So I don't have an example for you. I'm sure you can probably find one, and you can also create one, or we could do that today, because I'm pretty sure we're going to have time for that. So just I'll look back at your question, and maybe we can do that today. So here's how to create your own process map. We're going to walk through it. You just need a pencil and a piece of paper. Honestly, that's all you need. My fancy software is just that. It's fancy software. It's you don't need it. So grab a pencil, grab a piece of paper. That's pretty much it. And the first thing you want to do is start to get clear on what you want to show in your process map. Okay. And, like I said, it's like the writing process. The process of creating the map can help you to get clarity. Okay. And next thing that I usually do when I do this is I write down all the things that need to fit on the map. And I was going to show you an example of keyword research. Okay, so let's show an example of designing a website. And I'm just going to pull up my little drawing tool. And let's let's get some feedback from you guys now. If you were designing a website, what are some things that you think you would need to have for designing a website? And I'll start to think of things as well, but go ahead and put anything you can think of in the box. So we've got, Keith says a niche, definitely. Okay, what else? Briefing. What do you mean by that, Stephen? A platform. Yeah, sure. You need to know what you're putting it on. Header text. Yeah. You need keyword research, definitely. Okay. What else would we need? Okay, strategy. Yeah, it's a great one. Okay, what's the point of the site? Why are you designing it? Okay, a logo or brand. Excellent. Content and goals. Yeah, so we got goals. Let's put it here. All right, so competitive research. Yep. And what else do we have? Products. Yeah, products maybe, if that's the kind of site that it is. All right, so let's pause there. That's a lot of great ideas. Static or dynamic content. So lots of great stuff, guys. Let's just take this and see what we can come up with. So the first thing that I would do is first of all, I would do this on paper so that I can draw arrows and make changes. But starting out, I want to organize this and say, what comes first? So the first thing that I would think of is, well, I've got a niche, right? That's probably the first thing that I would do. So I'm just going to order this for myself. I'll just leave this on top, I guess, just to see what I can do. So I need a niche. Next thing I think I'm going to do is figure out what I want to do, right? What do I want to do with this site that I'm going to create? And once I do that, I'm going to do some competitive research. Okay, I'm going to find out what my competitors are doing and what they're thinking. I like this. There's Jason has a monetization strategy. So I'm going to add that here. Okay. Once I've got my niche, I've got my goals, I've done my my competitive research, I'm going to do some keyword research. Next, I'm going to make some decisions about, am I going to sell products? And if so, I need to know what kind of content to have. I'm going to create my content. And I'm still trying to figure out what briefing means. Can someone help me with that? Oh, domain name. Yeah, it's a good one. Domain name. See, we're getting clear as we're putting this together. Oh, so the briefing is the niche. Okay, so I'm going to take that out because we have niche in there. Thank you, Stephen. Actions for the users on the site. Yeah, so that would be actually that would be separate. Monetization and the flow of the site. Okay, like what users need to do. Okay, good one. All right, so now I want to decide what kind of platform to put it on. Actually, I'll probably know my header text already once I do my keyword research after I get the domain name. And I'll decide on a logo as well. But before I decide on a logo, I'll probably pick a platform. Okay, so I think this is a good start. I might change this as I start going. But the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start drawing this out. And the first thing I have, my first input, which I guess needs to come in an oval if we do it right, is a niche. So I'm going to have my niche come in. And once I have my niche, all I'm going to do is draw an arrow. And the next thing I'm going to do is, what's my point? Okay, what's my goal? Do I want to sell something? Do I want to do something else? I'm going to decide my goal. And I'm going to put that in one of these diamonds. And I'm going to say, one goal might be to sell widgets. Okay, sell stuff. And the other goal might be to, let's say, just have an AdSense site. Okay. And I know my writing is very unclear. I'm using a mouse to write it, so I apologize for that. And whoops. Okay. So let's say we've picked AdSense. Or let's say we've got selling stuff because we have products there. So the next thing I'm going to do is follow process of, and actually this can go together, right? Seller AdSense, these can actually go to the same place afterwards. And that's going to be to niche, goals, monetization, flow of the site. So we might draw the monetization. Okay, next thing. So you see what I'm doing here? I'm just taking all these things and figuring out what makes sense and what order.